Hi, welcome to Gospel with Greg, and this is the fourth video in my historical thinking series. And in this video we are going to be talking about theistic systems or theistic models. This video is going to address the idea some people will lodge at Christianity, being that it was just created from other religions, kind of was just pieced together from other religions. So the learning objective for this video is going to be identifying and classifying theistic systems. We're going to go through those and to show the Christian perspective of what does Christianity say about itself in terms of theistic identity and how Christianity perceives its development, and how Christianity actually has a very compelling historical self-identity. So first of all, we are going to look through some different theistic models, you could say. I felt like that was a good term to describe these different terms we're going to look at, good way to kind of group them. So have several different definitions here, and before we get into them, it's important to clarify that different religions and worldviews can function quite differently in terms of their perception of and belief in the divine. So a lot of people have this mentality, and it's more of a Western mentality, that all religions are basically set up in the same kind of way. Of every religion has a god or gods that created everything and have laws and that kind of thing. So a lot of people will kind of see it that way, and there are a lot of religions that don't really fit that perception. A lot of Eastern religions can differ quite fundamentally in their system than Western religions. So we'll look at that. When we look at the term theism in general, theism is the belief in the divine, God or gods, things like that. So theism is kind of just this belief that there is the divine, and that can vary on what the person means depending on what kind of theist or what kind of religion they follow. So with that in mind, going through the terms, we have atheism, and so atheism of course is the belief that there is no God, because of course the prefix a means without, so without God, without a belief in a God, you would have atheism. And also, by the way, for these definitions, I'm using the lowercase g for the word God or gods, since we're just talking about the idea of a deity, and not a specific God or God of the Bible. Of course, if I was referring to God of the Bible, pronoun, God is a pronoun, I would use capital G. Just wanted to clarify that because I'm kind of a stickler on that. But anyway, so atheism, no God. Monotheism is the belief in one God. So mono would mean one, so one God. In this category, you're going to have Christianity, but you also have religions like Judaism, Islam, and also religions like Zoroastrianism. That one is more obscure today. Zoroastrianism was a religion that came to be in ancient history in Persia, So kind of a Middle Eastern religion. It's more obscure today. Not a lot of people follow it. But it would fit that category as well. You also have deism. Deism is the belief that there is a God that is essentially the creator that created the universe and then hasn't interacted with it since. So deists would say that in the beginning God created the universe, us, set everything in motion, and then kind of just let it be. So deists would say yes, there is a God, but they do not believe that God has interacted with the universe or humanity in any direct way ever since creation. So they do not believe in any kind of post-creation miracles. God kind of just sat back after he created everything and let it kind of just unfold as it would. So you can kind of see deism has a lot of overlap with monotheism. It's kind of just in the sense of belief in one God, but quite a contrast on what comes after. So deists have been said to believe in an impersonal God. Next we have polytheism. Polytheism is the belief in multiple gods. Again, poly meaning multiple. And so you're going to find like Greek and Roman religion in that category. When you look at both of those, you see multiple gods in each. They each have a pantheon of different gods, god of this, god of that. So belief in multiple. Then we have pantheism. And pan, the prefix pan, means all. And so what that pertains to is pantheism is the belief that essentially the universe and the divine are intertwined. So while something like monotheism might say that there's a God who created the universe, I guess if you want to visualize it, you can kind of say God's up here and creates the universe like that. And so with pantheism, it's saying no, God is kind of one with the universe. The divine is kind of intertwined with the universe. So the universe itself has like a divine nature to it. And so there are numerous religions that would fit that. Most prominently, probably the one that's the most followed is Hinduism. Now, it should be said that there are numerous different ways to practice Hinduism, and sometimes it can look more monotheistic, sometimes more polytheistic, particularly from the perspective of Westerners. If they look at Hinduism, it might look quite polytheistic because you'll hear of multiple Hindu deities or gods like Vishnu and Brahma, different deities like this, and Shiva. And so at first glance, Hinduism might look like Greek or Roman religion. You have these multiple deities, but with Hinduism, there's quite a different flavor to it. There's kind of this idea of, again, there's kind of a divine nature to reality, and you kind of have these Hindu deities as kind of like maybe a part or a manifestation of that. It's very difficult to describe from a Westerner's perspective, and I would not say I'm an expert on Hinduism by any means, but what I'm trying to stress here is while you do have these deities in Hinduism, it's definitely not the same as Greek and Roman polytheism, but sometimes people might treat it like that. Sometimes, again, the way certain Hindus might practice Hinduism might look more monotheistic. So, for example, you have Bhakti Hinduism, and that involves the devotion to one specific Hindu deity. Again, that's not going to be the exact same as Christian, Islamic, or Jewish monotheism, but it would look more like that than some other ways of practicing Hinduism. And so that's kind of to say Hinduism is quite diverse in how it can be practiced, but generally speaking, it's considered pantheistic. And then lastly, we have panentheism. And so panentheism is kind of this idea that the universe is part of the divine. And I've done some research on this recently to kind of get some more clarity on it, because this one, out of all these terms, this one seemed to be the most obscure in terms of finding information on it. I also couldn't find any specific religions that were panentheistic, but there is kind of a panentheism system that some people can believe in. And so again, from the research that I've done on this, panentheism is depicted as the universe being part of the divine, and there is some overlap with pantheism here. So again, as we said, pantheism is this idea that the universe and the divine are intertwined, but with this panentheism, the universe would have a divine nature, certainly, but panentheism would say that the divine isn't limited to just the universe. So really, and there are different illustrations you can see. I would definitely, if you want to know more about this, look it up and kind of look at images. Those can be helpful in trying to get a grasp on what this is if you're not familiar with it. But from the research I've done, the best illustration that I can think of to describe panentheism would be that so my hand is part of my body, but my whole body isn't my hand. That's kind of a panentheistic idea of the divine and the universe. Is the universe is divine, but the whole of the divine isn't the universe. So we have these different systems here, and that kind of goes to show that depending on what worldview you're looking at, it can be wildly different. I've done some of my own self-study on different religions, kind of what they believe, how they function outside of my history education that I've gotten in college. And it's very interesting. If you look at, say, you're coming from a monotheistic background, studying something like pantheism can be very foreign. It's kind of like, I've had this experience where it's like trying to learn a foreign language. It's almost kind of like a native English speaker trying to learn something like, Chinese or something. It's just so different in how it's set up. But definitely Christianity is going to be in the category of monotheism. And some will say that Christianity just came from other religions like Zoroastrianism. I've heard that claim before, that Christianity and Judaism before it just borrowed a lot of ideas from Zoroastrianism, and we discussed that that's a monotheistic religion as well, Middle Eastern religion as well. Christians, of course, would deny this claim, but we do acknowledge development, and that's quite significant. So when we look at this development, when we look in the Bible of how Christianity developed over time, we see this kind of basic theism in the beginning of the Bible, of kind of just a belief in and worship of God before the development of any formal religion as we would consider it today. And then we have the Judaism of the Old Testament, and then of course Christianity in the New Testament. And so we can see this in the Bible when we look firstly at Matthew chapter 5 verse 17. This is Jesus speaking. "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." And so Jesus acknowledges that Judaism came before the Christian New Covenant, but that Christianity and Judaism are connected. Also, if we look back at the Old Testament in Exodus chapter 3 verse 15, we see, "And God said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, hath sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations." And so when we look at the history of this, and also in the Bible, we see that kind of Moses was chosen to bring forth this Old Testament law that greatly defines Judaism. But again, we see here at the time of Moses it being acknowledged that there were figures such as Abraham far before Moses that worshipped and served God, that would kind of fit in more with this kind of general theism. And so while Christian and secular historians would disagree on the specifics of how Christianity developed, Christianity displays cause and effects relationships that goes along with the flow of history, you could say. And so essentially the point I want to drive home with that is when historians look at history, we kind of, in our analysis, we see these cause and effect relationships of, what drives, this event or that event, what resulted in, let's say the Great Depression. Historians aren't going to say, "Oh, that just popped out of nowhere." Historians will look at what happened around that time and leading up to it and say, okay, what were the causes of this that led to those extreme effects in the economy? And kind of how did these things develop? Or same thing with Civil War. What cause and effect relationships resulted in the Civil War breaking out? And how did divisions within the country politically, for example, develop? So historians keep that in mind, cause and effect relationships and development of events and ideas in mind. And so when we see in Christianity this self-acknowledgement within the Bible of, there was Judaism before, and kind of this general theism before that we see in things like Adam and Eve's worship of God, and then kind of into Abraham around that time. You don't have the Jewish law that Moses would bring yet during his time. So when we see that kind of acknowledgement in Christianity that yes, this developed and there were cause and effect relationships guided by God, we say, but there was this development and cause and effect relationships. That goes along actually very well with how history generally works. And that's significant because there are some religions where you don't have that kind of self-perception. So, for instance, when we look at a religion like Islam, many Muslims will say that Islam has always been around. Now, they might acknowledge some kind of development and say, certainly Allah called new prophets along over time, and there was some development there. But a lot of Muslims will say that all the way back to Adam and Eve, they were Muslim. But again, with Christianity, we acknowledge that there was development. We acknowledge that there was cause and effect relationships. Again, we believe that it was guided by God, and that God had a plan throughout. But again, that kind of awareness of development and cause and effect relationships really goes along with, I guess you could say, again, the flow of history, of how history typically flows compared to other religions that kind of have that more, I guess you could say, more cemented thing of, oh, we've just always been this way. Because you'll see that as well. Of it's always been this way, no change with some religions in some aspects. Now, an important thing to clarify with that is some people might say, well, doesn't the Bible say God doesn't change? Certainly it does. But the important thing to clarify here from the Christian perspective is I'm not arguing, and Christianity doesn't say that God has changed over time, during this theism, Judaism, Christianity development. God does not change. It's been the same God behind it all. He had the same plan throughout. But on the human side of things, there have been phases in the overall plan. So again, God does not change in Christianity. Same God throughout. He has the same nature throughout. But in that big plan he has that doesn't change, there are individual kind of phases and steps in that. And that's kind of where we see the development on our end of things. And again, that's quite a compelling historical self-awareness on the part of Christianity. So, hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. Hope that you join me for the next video in the series. And until next time, God bless.